Welcome to the Craft to Career podcast with Elizabeth Chappell, where every week we dive into how you can turn your craft into a successful career. Get ready to have the career you've always dreamed of.
Welcome to episode 57 of the Craft to Career podcast. This week I have a guest who is an alumni from the quilt pattern writing course, who started her business only 7 months ago, and who was on the podcast a few weeks ago for episode 54 of Quilting Friends. It is Jessica Rose of Quilted Studio. Jessica is a dear friend who I've gotten to know from the course. She has really just knocked my socks off with her business success, with her knowledge. I just really love what she's doing. And so I invited her to come on the podcast today. She also has some really exciting news that she's going to be sharing here on the podcast today. So I can't wait to introduce you and to dive deep into Jess and how she got started with her career. So with that said, let's dive in and let's meet Jessica Rose. Jess, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who haven't listened, a couple of episodes ago, Jess was a guest with a few other friends, and we dabbled a little bit about her Instagram success. But I wanted to invite Jess on the podcast today and just do a deep dive because I find her success really cool and her aesthetic and all the things. So let's dive in. And Jess, can you tell us who you are and what you do as a creativepreneur?
Yeah, so I'm Jessica Rose. I am a quilt pattern designer and a reels extraordinaire, I guess now.
This is true. So, okay, how did you start quilting? I actually don't know this about you.
Yeah, so I actually grew up quilting. My mom quilted, she made quilts, my grandmother quilted, my aunt quilts. So it was kind of like a cultural thing. And I learned a lot just on my own. So in high school, I started making bigger quilts and kind of experimenting and things like that. So yeah, I quilted for a long time. I will say I took a break though through college when I was so poor and I was in such a small space that I couldn't afford to make quilts. But in the last 5 years or so, I've been able to make more quilts again, and it's been really fun.
So growing up when your mom and your grandma, when they were quilting, was there any part of you, this is me from personal experience, where I was like, no, that's not that cool. I don't know. Did you always really like it?
I will say this. I don't think anyone knew that I quilted. I don't think anyone in my high school, anyone knew. I wasn't like telling anyone. I wasn't saying like, oh yeah, I make quilts on the weekends. Like I honestly, that was the last thing I was going to tell anyone. I will say that I think I made some quilts for some friends, and I think they were like, oh, I can't believe you made this. Like, I'm shocked. So yes, it was not something I told a lot of people about. Yeah.
On the dating profile.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So where did you grow up? Where was this?
I grew up in Seattle, right at the base of Mount Rainier, so right outside the national park there. So very rural community.
Cool. Okay, so at what point did you think, okay, this thing that I do for fun in the hidden, I want to make a career out of this, and I think I might give it a go?
That is a great question. So I feel like I had to add some context. So I worked in business for a while, and one of the jobs that I had, I worked a lot with entrepreneurs, and these entrepreneurs were so frazzled and tired, and they worked 24/7, and they seemed stressed because they didn't really know what they were doing. And I thought, I will never be an entrepreneur. I will never do this. This looks terrible. They look so stressed out all the time. So it's actually really ironic that now I started my own little business. So I worked in business for a while. I did HR and training, things like that. And then this last year, I was looking for a quilt pattern to make for my husband, who's very tall. He's like 6'2" or 6'3". So it had to be a giant quilt pattern. And I wanted it to look good on my bed, but I also wanted it to be special for him and be somewhat masculine, oriented. And I couldn't find anything. I just kept looking and looking. And for months, I was like, okay, I want a stylish quilt pattern that is somewhat kind of gender neutral. And I just like could not find it. And everything it seemed like had butterflies or hearts or flowers or, I mean, I love quilting and those are all the things that I like too. But I will say it was really hard to find this pattern. And I thought, you know what? I have quilted for a while. Why not just design my own? So that's what I did. I sat down and I was like, okay, what kind of quilt pattern do I want to make? And I kind of figured it out. And it took so much longer than it needed to. Like, I mean, it took me like a month to figure out the math because I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was doing. Like, no idea. But I just thought, you know what? I can do this. I can make my own quilt pattern.
And so which quilt pattern is that? It's out now, right?
Yes, that was the first one. That was Siracusa. That was the plaid, the gingham that I designed. It's really easy. It's like strip quilting. But again, when I designed it, I was like, this is gonna take me forever. So yeah, it was at that point that I was designing this quilt pattern for my husband that I was like, you know, I bet I could just pop this on Etsy or I could just, you know, maybe sell it too. Because I'm making it for me. Like I might as well see if anyone else wants to make it as well. And so that's actually kind of where it started. And that was in October of 2021. So last year. And my husband was like, you know, if you're going to sell it, you might as well go all in. You might as well just create a little business, a little brand, a little Instagram, a little this, a little that, you know, and you might as well try and sell your pattern.
So, okay, I have so many like thoughts and questions. One, you're very good at marketing, and I wonder if that comes from your job you had before where you worked with entrepreneurs. Does that play into it?
I think a little bit. I think I've always been drawn to marketing principles and design and things like that. I've always been very creative, and so I think those were kind of extensions of my creativity. So for fun, maybe I would like look at fonts. You know, I mean, like I'm
Yeah.
kind of weird. I quilt, I look at fonts. Like
I
I
get it.
honestly just a weird mix, but yes, I do think that the marketing came from some of my business background, so that was helpful.
So, can you share what business this was? I'm intrigued. Like, what entrepreneurs were you working with? And if it's on the hush hush, that's fine too.
This business is interesting. It was around for a little bit of time, and what they did is they would help entrepreneurs connect with funding. And they would also get them together for classes. And so we would teach, I didn't teach, but I would help organize these events where we would help entrepreneurs learn from experts in the field. So we would gather them all together and then they would learn and connect and network and things like that. So
Very cool. And then, okay, I cannot help but when you were like, I will never be an entrepreneur. In college,
I know.
I went on a date with a guy and I was like, oh yeah, what are you studying? He's like, business, entrepreneurship. I'm like, ooh, that is risky. No
Oh,
thanks,
totally.
you know?
Yeah,
And now
no.
here I am like, ooh. But it's funny how things come around like that. So, okay, with your first pattern, okay, you were in the quilt pattern writing course. So, had you started designing this pattern before the course started?
Yes. So what happened is I approached my brother. I have an older brother and I said, "Hey, I am thinking about starting this little tiny business." And he has always been very entrepreneurial. Like 100% has started like 30 businesses. And he's now a dentist, but he runs all of these businesses on the side of being a dentist. And he immediately was like, "Well, if you are going to do this, you need to take a class." Because I've never done this before. And he was like, "You have to take a class because otherwise it's going to take you so much longer to learn these things." And so I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, we're still in school. Like, my husband hasn't graduated yet. You know, like, there's not a lot of excess funds to go towards things like that." But he was very insistent that I take a class. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions that I made really early on.
So I'm curious. Okay, and now it sounds like, well, tell me more. Why? But I have been very vocal about one of the biggest game changers in my career was taking a course from someone else. So, in what aspect was it a game changer for you, minus, the skills of learning how to write a pattern?
Yeah. Well, okay, the skills themselves actually were very helpful too. I'll go through all that. So I signed up for the class. I had already had Siracusa done, but I only had one size. And I didn't really know if it was correct or not. I had just based it off of all of the other patterns that I had made. I was like, here, I will just copy not copy, but I will take all of the principles that are used from all of these patterns, put them into one, and hopefully it'll work. So when I took your class, one, it really helped me learn design software. So like I was already familiar with Illustrator, but I didn't know how to do InDesign or things like that. So that really helped. And then I think being exposed to other people who were quilters. So for the first time ever, I was in a community where people were like me, where they liked quilting. And that was very unusual. Like I don't have any quilter friends. And so it provided this community, and that was really great. And then some of the guest speakers were amazing. And that actually kind of like, I would say, made me more curious about reels and why I started doing them. So yes, it was very
Okay.
helpful.
I just love how different things spark something totally different. Like everyone who's taken the course has been excited or ignited about something. And for you, it was reels. And I just have to say, it sounds like the entrepreneur gene does run in your family. Like it's there and it's strong. You
I
can't
will
avoid it.
say, I think entrepreneurship in a lot of ways is just slogging through, and it's a lot of late nights. Like it's a lot of, it's fun and I enjoy it. Otherwise I wouldn't do it, but it is a lot of work.
Well, and I'll say too, there's something that you had said once, and I don't remember the exact wording, but like a drive to succeed. And there's just this
Yeah.
drive. People are like, where does that drive come from? I don't know, but you
You just
have
have to
it.
want it. You really do. You have
Yeah.
to want it really bad.
Yep. Because it's not a walk in the park, but there's something very fun about it, and
Oh,
figuring it
totally.
out.
Yeah, I did not anticipate that. I didn't think that it would be so fun, but it has been really enjoyable.
When did it start to become fun for you? When were you like, ooh, this is really fun?
That's hard to say. I will say, there were a lot of late nights in the beginning where I was like, I don't think this is worth it. No one's gonna buy my pattern. Like, what am I doing? And then it got even worse when in the course, everyone was like, hey, you need a website. And I was like, a website? I don't even know how to build a website. Like, I don't know. It was very overwhelming in the beginning because you've got like 100 things to do and you have no idea how to do them. Like you don't know how to do a website. You don't know how to create a newsletter list. You don't know how to do anything. So it was very overwhelming. And then I think honestly, probably 2 or 3 months in, I was like, this is really fun. I've learned these things. Things are coming a little bit easier. People are responding well to my brand and my niche. And that was very encouraging.
Yeah. So who is your website host? Is it Shopify,
Shopify,
Squarespace?
yeah, I use Shopify, but I have a custom theme, and then I've also hired some Shopify experts to kind of customize it even further.
Oh, nice. Okay. You touched on your niche, which is such a cool niche. You have done such a good job. That's like the number one thing that people struggle with, but have to have success. So, can you
Mhm.
describe what your niche is and how you stumbled upon it? I don't know how you chose that niche.
Yeah, so I kind of went through it earlier. I really wanted to provide quilt design that was stylish, so it would fit into your living room, and was also beautiful and fun to make. And it could be for male, female, child, anyone. It didn't have to be so flowery, and it could be modern but beautiful. So I think that was kind of the brand that I was really going for. So I really wanted to design quilts that would fit into a West Elm, Pottery Barn, Restoration Hardware, anything like that. I wanted that quilt to sit in that space and belong there. I didn't want people to I didn't want to gift my quilt and have them put it somewhere else because it didn't really fit into their decor. It didn't fit into their space. So that is really the niche that I wanted to, capitalize on.
Which you have done so well. When you came out around the holidays with like a fur-backed quilt,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, that's like Pottery Barn." And then I found out you made it. I was like, "What?" it.
Yeah, that
So
was fun.
tell me, how was that received? For me, I was like, that's genius. Oh my gosh, it's going to be huge. How did that one go?
You know what's funny is that you have hits and you have misses, and I learned that very early on. Even my second pattern, I was probably a miss by some people's standards. But I will say the fur backing I thought would be so cool. I was so excited about it. I was like, this is so different. You know, I had to learn how to attach fur to a quilt top, which was kind of wild. But honestly, I think a lot of people were confused. I think they were like, is this a quilt still? Like, what have you made? What is this? What is this thing that you've created? So I think it was kind of funny. Oh, I still have that quilt and I still love it. I just flip it to the fur side, not during the holidays because it's kind of a holiday quilt. So it's kind of fun.
Well, I'm going to bring that back out in the holidays and request that you
I
do
know, right?
that.
Maybe this year it will take on. Maybe
Yes,
this year
yes.
everyone will make fur backed quilts.
But I mean, that is the thing because we never know as designers. I will put a quilt out. I'm like, this one's going to really be big.
Yeah.
And then it's not. And then some I'm like, well, which on this topic, okay, because you mentioned this is really different. There is something that I see among designers where they're like, different equals better. The more different, the better.
Hmm.
Not always. Like my bestseller is my what is it? My half square triangle better together quilt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, anyone could make that. So just for the listeners out there, I love that you touched on that like it doesn't have to be super out of the box. Just do what speaks to you and
Yeah.
it can be successful.
Totally.
So, okay, you mentioned your first pattern came out in October, is that right?
Yes.
So your business has been around, let's see, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Are we in April? We're in March. May?
May. We're in
Oh
May. We're in
my
May.
gosh.
June,
Okay.
May. I don't know what we're in, but we're in May.
Right. Okay. So it's been 7 months. Okay. And can you tell me how your growth has gotten, your business growth? Like, where are you at?
Yes. So, well, I mean, it depends on the metric. By which metric are you judging the basis of my business? So it's still relatively new and young. But I do think that I saw a lot of growth probably in the first, 4-ish months, which was really helpful. Just you have a greater audience to release things to, and I think that was really, really good. So my first pattern did well, surprisingly, because it was this gingham pattern, like you said, is so simple, but people really loved it. And honestly, it's really fast and easy to make. And I think people really were excited about a pattern that was beautiful and could fit into their decor, but was also really fast and easy to make. So that
Yeah,
one sold really well. And I think that kind of helped my trajectory later on. So,
for sure. And then we have to touch on your Instagram growth because it's somewhat unheard of. Like so how many followers do you have within this 7-month time frame?
yeah. So I started at 0. Yeah, I started literally where everyone else, if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't have a business yet, I don't have an Instagram. That's where I was 7 months ago. I had 0. Um, and probably within 3 months I had 1,000, maybe, maybe. And then after I started really focusing on reels and, being consistent on Instagram, um, I grew probably to 10K probably by January. And then today, I think I'm at like 18.5 or 18.7 or something like that.
I mean, that's crazy success that is just not super common. And then my big question is, has that translated to sales, growth in sales and growth in your email list?
Yes, I would say it does. I will say though that just because you have a large audience, you have a large community on Instagram, doesn't necessarily mean that you're just like raking in the sales. Like I think someone assumes that if they have say 50K or 100,000 followers, that they just make a bunch of money. You really don't. I think it just depends on how you interact with that community. So, and that is one of my goals is to interact with my followers and the people who are part of that community. So, and I do that through reels and things like that. So
Yes. Okay. 100%. Let's just take a moment to like simmer on that because it's huge. So many people I will hear like, oh, so and so's killing it. They have this many followers. I'm like, go and do a little digging around. How are they
Yeah.
earning money? They aren't,
Yes.
and
You do have to
some of
monetize it somehow. You have to
Yep.
create kind of an engine. So, and that, I'll talk a little bit more about that. So, what happens is that you get followers, and I will say having a lot of followers is very helpful, like I said earlier, when you're launching a product, because now you're not just launching it to 1,000, you're launching it to 18,000 people who could potentially see that. So, I will say that I think Roma, my third quilt pattern, I think was really successful. Well, in comparison to maybe my first pattern, because I just had a larger audience. So, and my mailing list, I haven't focused a lot on. I know this is bad. I'm bad.
You know me.
Don't I know? I was gonna say you're gonna be like, Jessica, sit down and work out a way to do this. I am growing that, but it is slower, and
Mhm.
so I need to figure out ways on how to kind of funnel people over into the mailing list. So
Yes, do that, do that. Because I will preach that from the rooftops forever. But there is a correlation between the growth of your following and the growth of your sales. So 100, and there is something to, if you want to work with a brand, if you there is, it's a vanity metric, but other people do look at that, and so it helps build credibility just
oh,
having
it
that
really does.
larger.
It totally does. And at some point when I hit the higher numbers, you talk to fabric companies and they are more than willing to give you all sorts of different things. And so in some ways, it kind of helps your bottom line because a lot of the quilts that I make, I don't pay for. I don't pay for any of the materials.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, in some ways it's helpful.
And I will say, I'm just going to give an unsolicited plug here, but if someone wants to offer you a free product or something because of how many followers you have, listen, just everyone ask for compensation that's monetary besides just the free thing.
I
You
know,
can.
I know. That's something
I didn't know that was touching a
everyone
nerve.
in the crafting industry needs to do. All of us
Yes.
are very nice and we're all very like, yes, give us free things and we'll do anything you want. But yes, I know we need to adjust that. I'm 100% with you on that. Yes.
And I think there's something too where at first when people offer things, it's so flattering, like, oh my gosh, I don't need to pay for this. It's
Yeah,
free.
you want
Cool.
me? Okay.
Right, right. But if they want you, that means that you're marketing for them and that's coming from their advertising budget. So,
Yes. I will
yeah.
say I've worked with some brands that I worked with in the beginning, and then later on, they would approach me and say, "Hey, do you want to, or can we take your video and use it here, here, and here?" And I'm at the point now where I'd probably say, "Sure," but that would come with some kind of compensation. I think I'd have the
Yep.
confidence now to be like, "Yes, but because I would be selling your product to like all
Mhm.
of these people, like you definitely need to compensate me in some way."
Which is fair enough because you're not even a year in, but it does, it takes a little bit of building confidence.
Yeah.
But at some point, let's all like acknowledge that this is marketing for someone. And so we can
Mhm.
get paid for that. So I am wondering, when you say that you make reels, tell me more because there's reels and then there's reels. Like not all reels are created equal. Am I right?
Yes. Okay. So probably around November, December, I started looking more into marketing. And once I had kind of grasped how to create a small business, I had a little website, I had kind of ticked off these things. And I was like, now I really want to focus on my reach. I want to see if I can kind of broaden my community. And so it seemed like that Instagram was a great way to do that. It's a free tool to use. I don't have to pay to use it. There are other tools you could do this for. Like, for example, I picked Instagram, but you could do like Pinterest or you could do TikTok or you could do, I don't know, all sorts of different things. So I picked Instagram, and it seemed like right around there, right around probably November last year, Reels became a lot bigger, and Instagram decided that they were going to push Reels way more than they had in the past. So it became pretty apparent that I needed to kind of embrace Reels if I wanted to grow. I didn't think I would grow as fast as I did. I will say I had no idea that some of my videos would just, get like 500,000 views. I did not think that would happen. But I just decided that I was going to start making reels. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just started.
Perfect. And you learned real fast. I mean, when we were together a few weeks ago, it was so enlightening where you're like, okay, let's try this. Oh, let's make that shorter. Let's da 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 da. I was like, well, shoot. Now every time I make a reel, I'm like, oh, what would Jess do?
What would Jess do? She'd make it shorter. Whatever you're
I
doing, make
know.
it shorter. That's like my theme. Make it shorter. Yeah. So I will say that the reels that I made in the beginning, I wasn't honestly, listener at home, you can scroll back and see my early reels. I have kept them on there for a reason. And that is you can go back and you can see them and see where I started. And I don't want to say terrible, but they're terrible. You can go back. Like one of my early reels, I didn't even add music to because I had no idea what I was doing. So it's just silent. It's just like silence. Yeah, they're bad. So I think with practice and then a bunch of research, really honestly, which is the key to everything with a business, is just research. It's just sitting down and doing a lot of research. I figured out that it seemed like there was a pattern to reels that were successful. And I thought, I think I could learn this. I think I could apply this pattern to quilting, which was kind of unusual. I didn't see a lot of people doing quilting reels at that point. Some of them were. There is a large community of quilters on TikTok, but I wasn't on TikTok, so I didn't really know, that community as well.
I actually don't. Now I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, it's big over there. You should go.
Okay. But okay, on that topic of Instagram changing, right?
Yes.
So it's a free platform. I know a lot of people are frustrated that
Yes.
I don't want reels. I don't want to see reels. To speak on that, it's a free platform, right? We don't own that. And so you got to kind of play with the rules, I feel like, or don't do it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
100%, yes. It's a free tool, and so you play by their game, it's a game. Everything is a game.
Mhm.
I will say that I am younger. I'm a millennial, and so I do not mind short form videos. I don't have a TikTok, but I watch TikToks. Like, I don't mind videos. I like pictures as well, and so I think for me, I was very flexible with the changes that happened to Instagram. And I know that some people were kind of sad and are still in mourning about the loss of like the single picture Instagram as it was. Which is to say, it is kind of sad. They've changed it now to become, TikTok 2.0. But I will say that is how I grew. I grew through that. So I can't complain too much.
Well, and if you're going to use someone else's platform, that's free and it helps drive a bunch of marketing. I just don't feel like there's a ton of room to complain. It's not always convenient. It's just not, but
yeah, it isn't. And TikTok and Instagram is not perfect. I will say that they make lots of changes. There's glitches sometimes. There's weird things that happen. But I think as an entrepreneur, a little business owner, I just have to be flexible. I have to play by other people's rules until I can make up my own rules. And I have 50,000 people on my mailing list, and I have a website that gets a ton of traffic all on its own, so for now I will play by their rules.
Yep. And I will continue to play by their rules because it is a piece of my marketing pie,
Yes.
Even though I have a healthy email list, I'd be lying if I said I didn't add people to my email list through Instagram, so they'll change it will continue to change. The only thing that's consistent is that it's not consistent. So
yes, totally.
It'll keep changing. So I have been begging you to make a little course teaching other people how to do reels because so many things. You're good at it. You've had success. And you did a little mini course for our Craft to Career students. And I love that you're like, this is so basic. Everything you say, you're like, this is so basic. I'm like, you have got to stop saying that because I feel like
I will. I'll stop saying that.
I'll
stop saying that. I'm going to stop saying that. I promise.
So the things that just come natural to you don't for others. And you're able to teach it in a way that makes sense, which is awesome. So I think you are actually going to move forward with this. Am I right?
Yes. So after, what happened is that during your course with the pattern writing class, I had already kind of embraced reels and I had seen some growth from it. And by the end of your course, I had a lot of our classmates reaching out and they were like, listen, you need to teach me what you did. Like, I want to be better at reels. How did you do this? And I was like, well, like I said, it's so easy. It's so
Yeah.
easy. You just do this, this, and this. And so after a while of one-on-one help with some of my classmates, I was like, you know what? They're right. I should just sit down and make a course with all of these very kind of beginner-friendly reels kind of things. And that's what I did over the last like 4 months. I've been working on this course. And it was specifically geared towards beginners. It is, if you have never made a reel before, this course is for you.
And I just think too, if there's something that people are asking you about over and over again,
Yeah.
and it's kind of nice that you have experience under your belt. You're not just like, I'm going to make this because, but like you actually taught people, including me, and it's been really good. So you know what you're talking about, and you're a good teacher. You're qualified and you're good.
Oh,
So,
stop.
well, but I won't. So when will this be available?
Yeah, so it's a 2-week course. It has 7 modules in it, and we are going to do it at the beginning of June. It will be at the beginning of June. So I do have a sign up already. It has limited spots just because it's my first course, and I'm going to limit it. So if you would like to take it, please go sign up, and you will be the first ones to know when it opens. But I think it'll be really fun because I feel like it will level the playing field for some people who maybe are at a disadvantage and never really learned social media. I just kept thinking about maybe some of the older generations who just like, it wasn't their fault that they didn't grow up creating short form videos. Like they didn't, it's not their fault they didn't have that. So I thought this would be a great way to kind of introduce them to reels. And by the end of the course, they could be making the same reels that I'm making. So yeah, that was the whole point.
So for people who have made reels, are you going to be offering a course that's more advanced?
We'll see. Yes, I will. It just depends on how one-on-one goes. This is basically, it's Instagram Reels for beginners, but I just call it one-on-one. It depends on how this one goes. If this is great and people love it and they want to sign up for it and everyone's like, okay, I took this class, I want to know more about all of these other kind of marketing principles that go into Reels and all like the more advanced things, I definitely do another class. So we'll see. If you want another class, go sign up for the first one and we'll see how it goes.
I'm going to say people are going to want another class. I already know because whenever I'm with you, I'm like, tell me more. Which, can I ask a totally selfish question, which will help the listeners as well? Can I just pick your brain? I've got
Of course. Ask me any question.
Okay,
We'll
perfect.
hear it.
Okay. So I do have a company that wants me to make a reel right now, and they want me to do a voice over.
Okay.
Should I have music in the background or should it just be my voice?
I would do a voiceover with a trending audio in the background at a very low level.
Okay, perfect.
That's what
Thank
I would
you.
do.
I have been stressing about that. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't know what to do.
You can also do, I would say at your point, because you do have a very large following, you could probably get away with just doing a voiceover, which would then become an original audio, which is fine. And Instagram is actually going more towards original audios. So you could experiment and do 2 reels. And
okay.
I don't know if they're paying you to do 2 reels, but you could split it up and do one with a trending audio in the background, voiceover, and then do the second one with just your voice.
I like it. I will say, I'll throw this out there, which is kind of advanced. They are going to be posting it and collaborating with me. So I'm just going to throw that out there. If you have questions, sign up for Jess's course. That might be a bit advanced. We'll have to just see.
I do go through collaboration. I show you how to do it with other people. So
okay,
that will be part of it.
Good. Okay. So you say it's all beginning, but I just learned how to do that. When you're like, we should collaborate. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? We should do what now?
I will say that's new. That's a new feature. They just launched that like 2 months ago. So
okay.
Yes, I will be the person that will keep abreast of these things for
yes.
you. You don't have to. I will tell you about them.
I'm keeping you on speed dial. Jess, what they do today. What's new today?
Seriously.
For anyone out there who's listening that's a creative entrepreneur, if you could just share your top tips with them, whatever comes to mind of things you've learned. Granted, it's not even been a year. I just can't get over the success and growth that you've had, which is exciting. But yeah, what tips have you got?
So for people who have not started yet, I will say when you are considering your niche, just pick something that you really love and that you are already doing. So, for example, I was already making quilts in my spare time. My husband is gone a lot in med school, so he's never home, and I at night would just make quilts by myself. I'd turn on Netflix and I'd make quilts. And I thought this business is just an extension of something that I already love. And I think that makes it a lot easier for me because when I'm making content, when I'm making marketing, when I'm interacting with my community, these are people that I was already, involved with. This is a niche that I already love. So I will say that pick something that you could talk about and write about and research for the next, however long it is.
Okay, I love that too. Just also with your look, because it's very genuine. Like that's something that you love. I know sometimes people struggle with finding a niche because they're looking at it the other way around. They're like, what's popular? What's going to do
Yeah,
well?
I would not do that.
That
No.
never ever goes off. It never plays off well. So
No, it doesn't. And honestly, you really want to attract people to you that you want to interact with on a daily basis. So I would say like whatever brand and niche that you are creating, I would say just make sure it's something that you love and something that you want to interact with on a daily basis.
I love it. Well, that has served you very well, and you have had great success with that. And you're just great at business. I am excited to see. I hope you have other courses coming out besides Rails, just because even when I chat with you, I'm like, oh, how did she know that? Like you are just very natural with business.
I will say, I've done a lot of research. I have taken a lot of little mini courses since yours, and I've really kind of tried to understand marketing from every standpoint. And I will say that's one of the reasons why I think reels have been successful for me is that I think none of my reels are random. Like none of them are just a random bit of thing of content. All of them are planned. I have a content marketing plan and I stick with it usually, unless I get sick or we're moving next 2 weeks. But it's very planned and it's very deliberate. And so I think that helps kind of my brand maintain kind of its brandness. I guess that's not
So can you touch on more on that? I'm very intrigued. Or is that more of like, you got to pay to get access to what you're talking about here?
That's 2.0. No, well, actually, I do individual consulting as well on the side. And that is something that we go through. So basically, I sit down, and I've done this with a couple of people already, and we just sit down and we go through and we create content marketing plans, and we make sure that people understand exactly why they're posting their content. Because that's the biggest question people come to me with is they're like, well, I don't know what to do. How do you come up with content? How do you know what to post about? How do you know what reels to make? And I'm like, well, if you're asking that question, it means that you really haven't nailed down your marketing plan and you really haven't nailed down like your target audience. So
Oh, boom. Okay, this is golden right here. See, this is what I'm talking about. You are so good. I love it. Okay,
I've
everyone,
just been
reach out
listening
to
to your
Jess.
podcast, Elizabeth. That's it. I've just been listening to all your podcasts.
That's all the education you've had here.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, okay, if people want to find you, if they want to sign up for the course or follow you on Instagram, where can they find you?
So we're at Quilted Studios. It's quilted without an E because that's more modern and cool.
Go ahead and spell it.
Quiltd Studios. So we're on Instagram, and then I have a website, and there will be a link in my bio where you can sign up for the wait list for this first course. And yeah, again, it has limited spots. So if it fills up, it fills up, and we'll see how it goes. If a lot of people don't get in, then we'll probably run it again later in the fall. So
smart. Okay, yay. And then if people want to know more about the one-on-one thing, or is that like something you're offering, or is that
It is. And you can DM me. I've had people just DM me. And also on my website, there is a section under About where you click About and it will say Small Business. And you can click on that and there will be a spot where you can actually just, you can schedule a time with me. So it has my schedule in there already. So you can just go in there. It's really easy. Just, do that. So.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you so much for being here. And congrats on just your growth and studying, the success that you've had, which is not by accident. It's from all your hard work and your dedication. But yeah, thanks so much for being here. It was such a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. I had so much fun.
Jessica, thank you so much for being here today with us. I absolutely love chatting with you. I wish I could go back into your high school days and see the quilts that you made back then. And for you listeners who are wanting to grow your audience on Instagram to learn how to have success with your reels, you can check out Jessica's website. The link for that is in the show notes. It's at quilterscandy.com. Go to the podcast and look for episode 57. Also, be sure to leave a review for the podcast. Go ahead and let me know what you're thinking of the podcast, how it's been helpful for you. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Craft to Career podcast. Each and every Friday, a new episode comes that will help you build your business and turn your craft into a successful career. Each week, we have different guests that come and share their story of how they've turned a craft into a career, or they share their perspective, something unique in business that I think would really be great for you listeners. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast, and I will see you next Friday with a brand new episode of the Craft to Career podcast. Have a wonderful week.